All right, it's time for another PulseWave report with yours truly, Dex the Algo Capitalist, aka the Vulcan, coming to you live from PulseWaveTrading.com, home of the world famous PulseWave Price Trigger reports. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today is Take Back Friday. It is the start of the weekend, and a lot of people are going to be pushing back from the computer and just chilling, while others will be taking advantage of any moves in the market that we're seeing this morning. And we are seeing some rather dramatic moves. Bitcoin futures composite index is down 2,495 points. Ouch. Gold is down almost $40. Ouch. Silver down over a buck, down $1.08. You got the Russell My Hustle down 18. The NASDAQ is up 22 points. S&P down 12 and 3/4. And the Dow was just down 300. Dow futures are now down 281. So we're getting a little bit of sparkiness in these markets on a Take Back Friday. Reasons for it is because, number one, it is Friday after all. So typically, you're going to see those profit-taking events, but then sometimes Fridays are continuation patterns. And that's pretty much what you're seeing. We did have some crash alerts coming into today, specifically on the Dow and the Russell. Okay, so those are pulse waving today. All right, pulse waving negative. The NASDAQ 100 and the E-mini S&P 500 are facing continuation patterns today. That's what they're doing. So they're doing exactly as we anticipated that they would be doing. And it's just one of those situations where you have to, trade what you see and ignore what you don't see. And that's pretty much the way it works. You know what I mean? So with that being said, we're waiting and going to patiently look to see what happens. The close today is going to be the most important, how the markets close, the movement throughout the day. I mean, it's important to a degree. Closing is always the most important. How a market closes is even more important how it opens and even how it trades through the day. The close is the most important factor in any market. You can have absolute carnage, but if the market closes positive on the day, that sends a huge message. So always remember that the close is key importance because it lets you know how people really feel in any given market. All right. And what the true consensus really is. So always keep that in the back of your mind. That is what really drives the market. Okay. Everything else is just noise and really doesn't factor in when you break it down. Really doesn't. No one cares. But they do care about that price action. Well, that price action means a heck of a lot more than anything else. So that's what we're watching closely today. We're going to see, well, today be one of those situations where the first hour of trading, you set your trading range for the day, and then the market will spend the remainder of the day just, trading in a very, very narrow band, if you will. So I will be watching closely for any cues that we may get onto the close today, because that's going to determine what Sunday night looks like. And as you know, Sunday night is also key because it determines, how you start the week off. So that is also of extreme importance in the market. Normally, if you can get in on the moves when it begins Sunday night into Monday morning, you would usually end up ahead for the week. So it's also of key importance, and that can't be stressed enough either. These are very, very critical times. There's so much news sometimes that comes out in a given week that it's impossible to stay on top of it all. There's a lot of noise in the news, there's a lot of foolish news that doesn't mean anything to you, but usually buried in all of that is very, very important, newsworthy things that you should know about, but that the mainstream media will not cover. They want to focus on trivial matters. They don't want you focusing on, the things that you should be focusing on. And that's what I try to bring when I do these PulseWave reports. I try to bring you the things that you should be focusing on and not, celebrity gossip. Who cares that Jawakatima had her babies? I don't care. What matters is those things that are going to affect the population. Jawakatima having babies is not going to affect you specifically, not at all. But what will, hit you is the fact that they say there's certain things that they don't want you to be focusing on. How do you know that there's something that they don't want you to focus on? It's very simple, because they won't talk about it. Or if they do bring it up, they'll just, gradually graze over it. They won't really give it, the attention that it deserves. They'll just graze over it. That's how you know that they want to keep you ignorant on a particular topic. Well, there are a lot of topics that they're keeping you ignorant of. And we try to go through those things as much as possible. Something for you to think about over the weekend, though. Now, if you've been listening to every report I've done this week, you should have picked up on the theme. And there's a prevailing theme that took place this week. And that theme is the tyrannical takeover that we are seeing, not just in the United States, but worldwide. We're entering into a technocratic tyranny that has many legs. There's a social justice leg. There is a medical tyranny leg. All these different legs of the spider. And we need to be aware of them. Worldwide, our brothers and sisters are suffering because of this tyranny takeover, this new world order that they have renamed global reset. All right. What it means is they like to play with words and redefine words and choose euphemisms and words that will be easily palatable to the masses. Because they just came out and said, we're going to shoot every last one of you, then people would exactly understand that immediately and they would take action. But if they say, we're going to provide you with peace and safety, no one can argue with peace and safety. So you're saying you don't want peace? You're saying you don't want to live in safety? No one will argue that, right? But what they don't tell you is that when they say peace and safety, they mean tyranny. They mean removing your civil liberties and civil rights. And they want to deprive you of those rights. That's what they really mean. And that's the thing that they are trying not to say. Is it starting to make a little bit more sense now? Because it should by this point. You should have gotten it by now. You should be of understanding by now. There should be no guesswork involved as to where things are headed. Okay? So this is where we are. This is what we have to deal with. This is what we have to contend with at this point in time. And the real question is going to be, as a people, as a society, where do we go from here? That is the $1,000,000 question that you should be asking yourself. That's what you should truly be meditating on right now. What does this all mean? And where are we going from here? What is the end game? Because there is an end game. Does this end badly? That could be a question. I think that is a really good question that needs to be asked. Does this end badly? We got a lot to think about as a people. As a people, what does this all mean? Where are we headed? Where are we going from here? And if you are a astute individual, then you would be asking these questions, because these questions demand an answer. They really do. They demand an answer. We need to know. But I'm afraid that the populace, the citizenry, has been so lobotomized by the propaganda and the non-stop barrage of disinformation by those controlling the government, the same entities that use the mainstream media to project onto you that which they want you to believe in. Have you ever just sat down and thought about it, just for a moment? Have you ever sat and thought about where your news comes from? Who is giving you the news? Have you ever noticed that your news does not come from a reporter, but that your news comes from the United States government? Are you aware of that? Think about it. How many times have you watched a live press conference, or you've watched a movie or a TV series, and there's always that scene with the sea of reporters at the White House press conference, and an individual comes to the podium and he relays to you the news. And then the reporters supposedly have to volley for time. They're all raising their hands and speaking out, hoping that the government will call on them and take their question and answer their question with a complete answer, an honest answer. But what you don't see is that a majority of the time, those questions have already been pre-filtered, pre-screened. They already know what to ask, and they know what not to say or what not to ask. And if you violate that said privilege, then you can lose the ability to even step foot into those White House briefings, and then you miss your opportunity to so-called ask questions. That's what they want you to believe. They want you to believe that being a member of the press corps is a privilege, and if you don't play by their pre-established rules, then you will lose that privilege to be amongst the sea of reporters during a White House briefing or a Pentagon briefing or any department briefing, any government briefing. Notice how it's the government that is giving you the news, and they control the narrative. There is no independent authority that checks or fact checks the government, because the government has insulated itself through a very sophisticated schematic, and it falls under the umbrella of national security. So the only way to have access to said information, sensitive information, is if you hold a security clearance. And then even if you hold the security clearance, there's another great wall of bureaucracy with various levels of clearance. And then even if you are able to obtain the most sensitive levels of clearance, there is another bureaucratic wall put up, and that falls under the category of need to know. So even if you have the clearance, now you have to overcome the need to know, not the right to know, but the need to know. What the average American citizen does not understand is that its government has improvised by creating an insulary wall around itself so that it cannot be challenged and that it can go unchecked. You see, the federal government is above the law. The federal government believes that it is the law and that it can do whatever it wants to do, whenever it wants to do. And not only that, but it gets to go unchecked and unchallenged. Now, you may be asking, how is that possible? Well, think about it. You can't really sue your government, sue the federal government. Let me explain what I mean by that. There have been people who have successfully sued the federal government and even won in court, never to receive a penny of any award money that was awarded them. Good luck collecting, even if you do beat them in a court of law. Why is that? It's because they don't just control the courts, they also control the banking system. See, you've been living under a fascistic form of government for decades without realizing it. We have the merger of corporate and government. So those lines have been blurred. You see, the central banking cartel, under the guise of the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a private corporation, they are the government now. Even though they are technically not the government, they are a de facto government in and of themselves, because you can't do anything without banking. Banking runs the gamut of every area of life. No banking, no life. You can't do anything without banking. They control that. That is why they have been very silent on what's been going on behind the scenes and only giving you the information that they want you to know. They feed it to you. Again, you cannot fact check the government. You cannot investigate the government. The government investigates itself. And you know what it always finds when it investigates itself? No wrongdoing. Who's going to check the government? Who's going to arrest the government? No one can. The federal government has, by all intents and purposes, made the U.S. Constitution null and void because you lack the power to enforce the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution becomes worthless if the people lack the power and infrastructure to enforce it. Rules are only rules if you have the power to enforce them. The federal government has the power to enforce its rules, regulations upon you. At any point in time, they can call martial law or a form of martial law upon the citizens, and they can carry that out. It's even gotten to the point when even the states are afraid of the federal government. Because a governor knows that if he stands up and says, you know what, I think we're going to succeed and we're going to become a nation unto ourselves. What you don't know is that behind the scenes, there are many tools at the federal government's disposal. They have multiple agencies, many of which are acronyms that you and I have never even heard of. They have things that they can do, tools at their disposal. Why do you think whenever you see a politician gaining momentum who says, no, I'm standing my ground, I'm going to do something different, I am pushing to enforce the law, I demand justice? One of the best ways and things I can show you this, the best example we have in our lifetime would be Ron Paul. Do you recall when Ron Paul was pushing to audit the Fed? And do you remember when he was running for president? And all of a sudden, without warning, without notice, he drops out of the race, claiming family. He cares about the safety of his family, blah, blah, blah. You would only say something like that if you had received a threat, a credible threat from a credible source. This is another layer of insulation that the U.S. government uses at its disposal, which is hiring other actors that act on the government's behalf, giving the federal government its hands clean. You've rendered the government's hands clean when they can hire private actors that you don't even know about. These individuals are paid to take the fall, to be the fall guy, the lamb taken to the slaughter. And they'll make you think that this was done by one individual, just like they did with Kennedy. No, one man did this, the magic bullet theory, and the people ate it up. Even those that were still operating under their full mental faculties eventually gave in and had to back down and say, yeah, the magic bullet theory is what happened. They have absolute power to do whatever they want, and they control the media, and they use the media for whatever purpose they want. And that purpose is to control the public. You control the public when you control the narrative. You control the narrative when you control the flow of information. And that's how they're able to do what they do. Why do you think now that social media has been doing the government's bidding for them? This is what we have allowed over several decades of just dropping the ball. You've allowed the federal government to become absolutely out of control. When our founding fathers created the U.S. Constitution, they put in it backstops to protect the citizenry from a tyrannical government. That is why the right to have a militia is what it is, because it was designed to keep government in check and not allow it to get out of control. But the American people got lazy. The central banking schematic allowed there to be periods of overwhelming prosperity. Everyone knows if you get a man drunk and he's partying and you surround him with beautiful women and the money's flowing and the champagne is flowing, is he thinking critically at that moment? No. He's having a good time and he doesn't even realize, and now he's been compromised. See, they are masters of getting people to be found in compromising situations. So if a governor, senator, whatever decides, I'm going to go my own way, I'm breaking away from this, they'll just have to pull out the Polaroids and say, here's the Polaroids. Remember that party back in 1976? Well, remember how we swept that under the rug for you? Well, it would be very unfortunate for these Polaroids to come out now, wouldn't it? I don't care. Do what you want. I'm breaking away from this. All right, Mr. Cosby, remember we warned you. I don't care. Then all of a sudden, not one, not two, not 10, but dozens of women come forward saying he roofied me and basically raped me. You and I know, and they know too, that it was not rape, it was consensual. See, truth and facts can be twisted. The truth of the matter is, yes, they probably did ingest roofies. But that's the facts. But the truth of the matter is, roofies at that particular time were no different than ecstasy is today. It was a party drug. Everybody knew that. They took them things. They knew what time it was. You don't get to voluntarily, willingly, and knowingly smoke crack. And then after you smoke crack and get addicted, say, I'm going to sue the drug dealer that sold me the crack because I'm addicted now, and I changed my mind. I revoke my consent for him to sell me those drugs. So I'm going to revoke my consent now 30 years later, and we're going to go to court, and I'm going to sue him because it tore my life up for 10 years. And, I can't get that time back, but I think that time's worth maybe $100 million. So let me go ahead and take him to court for that. I'm revoking my consent that I gave 30 years ago. But that's the world that you have woken up to. And it frightens people to death, and rightly so, because you can be deprived not only of your freedom, but you can be deprived of your property. And they use these various tools at their disposal to keep people in check. And even if they don't have any dirt on you like that, well, they have other tools. They can still ruin your name in the media. They can contrive scenarios and lies, things that they know that are lies, things that they know that they'll never be able to prove in a court of law, but they don't have to. Public perception is long lasting and it's solid. That's why they were able to come forward with a new schematic of the old one, a new updated version, and they just call it cancel culture. We're going to cancel you. You say something that goes against the narrative, then guess what? Either you're going to be forced to give a public apology and or be financially ruined. Because if that doesn't work, remember, the federal government controls the banking system. The central banking system controls the government. Therefore, they'll just cancel you from their banking system. Whatever bank was doing business with you has now decided, we're no longer going to do business with you, Mr. Trump. And it doesn't stop at a bank. They can get an entire state to say they don't want to do business with you. New York City. We no longer want Trump as a business partner in the city of New York. We don't need him in New York. We're gonna revoke all of his licenses and all these things. We're just gonna go ahead and do that because we're political. Politics before money. You're politically dangerous. You're a political grenade. So we have to sidestep you. And if I don't do this and be proactive, then they're going to cancel me as mayor. They're going to cancel me as governor. They're going to cancel me as senator. So I have to protect my interests as well. That's why we're stabbing you in the back and we're letting you go. And we're kicking you out of our town, out of our city, out of our county, out of our state, and eventually out of our country. I'm sure if they could contrive a way to do so, they would excommunicate Donald Trump out of the country. They would deport him. Yep, they would. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a dangerous time that we find ourselves in today. We are setting dangerous precedents, and we need to be very careful of what we are doing today. Like I said, these are very dangerous times. And yes, we are setting very dangerous precedents. Are you sure that this is what you want to do? Are you sure this is what you want? Because once you give power away, it never, ever comes back. They don't turn it off. All right? They never give it back. They're not going to say, just give us absolute power just for 5 minutes and we'll give it back to you. No, they will not. You're not going to get those freedoms and liberties back. Not now, not ever. Okay? Hear what I'm saying to you. This is the 11th hour. And you're losing your country. And if you don't wake up and acknowledge this and deal with this right now, it's going to be lost forever. And you won't be able to get it back. The clock is ticking. The decision is yours. Will we, the people, stand up and say enough is enough? Or will we, the people, bow down and bow out gracefully and just render all power, complete and absolute control to the federal government? Because right now we've gotten to a point where even the federal government supersedes the state. Even the state is being exposed as having little to no power to go against the federal government. This has been a coup, and it's happened under our watch. Again, you're allowing runaway government to go unchallenged. And you're not even batting an eye at it. You're not even moved by it because enough people are still drunk in the club. You still sipping the scissor in the club. You still popping the mollies and all of that stuff in the club. You're comfortable. You're partying. You're happy. Not realizing that there's no such thing as being a good citizen once you're under complete tyranny. You can be the most compliant citizen that ever existed, and they will still stomp on your neck with the boot. You will still get the Timberlands to the back of the head. Make no mistake about it. You are not a friend of the government. You are its enemy when they seize absolute power, absolute control. Don't let that happen. Don't let it happen. Stand up. Take back the government. I don't even know why I'm wasting my time with all this, because I told you, I warned you during the election to vote them out. That was the only way to stop the train. Nobody listened. No one wanted to hear what I was saying. And now, guess what? It's too late. They've already seized power, and they're in the process of seizing absolute power. Absolute power. They're gonna get it too. They're gonna seize it. They're gonna get it, and you won't get your country back. Your country will be lost forever. So I hope that you're okay with that. You can live with that, but you've now doomed your posterity to absolute tyranny and perpetual poverty. I do not think that the majority of the people in the United States can really appreciate the level and the degree of what's really going down right now. I don't think they really appreciate what is happening and what has happened. But you will shortly, because too much has been allowed to go on for too long. And I'm afraid that you're going to see. You're going to see, and you're not going to like what you see. So with that being said, I left you with something to think about over the weekend. Think about where we are, what's going on, and what that means, and what that is going to mean in the future. Because whether we like it or not, the future is coming. The future will be here, and we have to live in it. All right? With that being said, this is the Algo Capitalist. Smash that like button. Go to PulseWaveTrading.com so you can learn how to navigate these markets and build that strong income stream for yourself that you're going to need once all the jobs have been taken by the AI. Don't become a slave to universal basic income, which will be arriving here shortly. Bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs get slaughtered. So remember to take what you can and give nothing back. And I'm out. Have a wonderful weekend. Peace.